77-year-old billionaire Robert Kraft is accused.
We've all heard that New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft was caught in a sex trafficking sting.
Women at the spas were lured into the sex trade.
They were women who were from China, who were forced into sex slavery.
We're told it happens all the time.
Thousands of children are raped every day.
Sex trafficking, a growing problem.
But that's not true, says reporter Elizabeth Nolan Brown. In Robert Kraft's case,
they had all of these big announcements at first saying that they had busted up an international sex trafficking ring, and these women were being forced there and they weren't allowed to leave.
This is not about lonely old men or victimless crimes. This is about enabling a network of criminals to traffic women into our country for forced labor and sex.
But now prosecutors concede there was no sex trafficking, and that's typical.
I'd say 99% of the headlines are not true. Sex trafficking and prostitution are just sort of used interchangeably.
We're here to rescue people that need to be rescued.
Police routinely claim they rescue women.
They say we rescued these women, and by rescue, they put them in jail and give them a criminal record. The victims are the sex workers themselves who are getting harassed and locked up in cages by the cops.
Agents arresting at least 14 suspects.
Being arrested doesn't help you.
These women chose to be sex workers.
I wasn't coerced. It was something that I actively wanted to do.
But the cops call it sex trafficking. You were trafficked.
Yeah, they call a lot of things trafficking, the drug trafficking, the immigration trafficking.
Celebrities perpetuate the myth.
Today, you can go online and buy a child for sex. It's as easy as ordering a pizza.
Human trafficking is the fastest growing illegal business in the world.
If that was the case, cops would be able to find this all the time. Cops wouldn't be having to go to doing these elaborate stings.
Florida police spent months taking down the Robert Kraft spa.
They had Homeland Security involved. They were following these women around to grocery stores, watching them buy condoms. They were going through their trash and analyzing their trash. If this was really a situation where these women were being forced and sexually assaulted multiple times a day, the cops just let it happen for months on end?
The women were trafficked.
In case after case, police call the women sex slaves.
These women are true victims.
I actually talked to one of the sheriffs who was interviewed there, the first one, John Urquhart, and he ended up saying, well, maybe they weren't being forced by whatever, but we're all trafficked by something, and there was money involved. And then by the end of the investigation, they were like, well, they were pressured because they didn't know a lot of people and they wanted to make money.
The implication is, with the number of men and the number of hours, that this couldn't have been voluntary.
I read through all of the court documents involved in this, and it actually paints a very, very different story.
The documents, as usual, made reference to prostitution. The women apparently were willing.
We wanted to rescue them out of that horrible life.
They're on a moral crusade. They're doing the right thing.
But all they did was actually go in there, bust up their place of business, close it down, and then let the women go.
The cops are not cruel. They, I assume, want to do the right thing. Why would they say this stuff?
Cops like working these kind of cases, I think.
They bring the police good publicity.
A major sex trafficking ring busted.
And also,
you have a lot of federal money coming at this. These human trafficking task forces where the federal government funds these local cops to do these stings, and if they call them human trafficking stings, they get this money.
So much of the anti-prostitution laws that are being pushed is a combination of the conservative fetish for going after people for doing sex stuff and the liberal instinct to help a group of people that they can't be bothered to understand.
Trafficking is a real problem in every state in the United States of America. Right now, almost 300,000 American children are at risk.
300,000 children.
300,000.
Not just at risk, says this former prosecutor.
300,000 kids a year are raped, sex trafficked, and pimped in this country.
That 300,000 number was disavowed.
The lead author of the study, Richard Estes, now disavows it. The National Crimes Against Children Center says do not cite this study. And we've had so many people debunk the study and say this is just a total bullcrap number.
I'd like to tell you a story about a 15-year-old girl.
Actor Ashton Kutcher even promotes an app which he claims rescues sex trafficking victims.
We've identified and recovered over 6,000 trafficking victims this year.
Ashton Kutcher has this app which he claims recovers victims. 300,000 children are at risk.
Where is he getting these numbers?
If Ashton Kutcher is finding all those victims, he's not turning them over to police.
Kutcher's representatives did not respond to our repeated emails.
When we have these exaggerated numbers, it forces people to go into this crazy emergency moral panic mode that ends up not helping the actual problem that we have.
If it was your daughter there, you would not be saying it's a victimless crime.
They want to just eradicate all prostitution.
We will not stop until we have stamped out the menace of human trafficking.
They want this imaginary world where if you take away, a safer option for these women, then everyone will just, the oldest profession, as they call it, will magically stop. But that's not going to happen.
They're treating the women like a piece of furniture.
The way we try to stop that from happening is actually making the problem worse.